Nintendo's recent showcase of Bowser's Fury is a lot more telling than you may think at first glance. This is some additional content coming with the Switch port of Super Mario 3D World, but I feel it's significant in its own right, showcasing the direction Nintendo is taking with 3D Mario going forward, and hinting at what the next game in the series might be. Let's talk about it. So first and foremost, what's the goal of Bowser's Fury? At its core, you play as Mario, accompanied by Bowser Jr. of all characters who we'll touch on more in a minute, and you travel around the region of Lake Lapcat collecting cat shines. Once you collect enough of them, the Giga Bell is awoken, and that's when Fury Bowser is on the attack. If you collect the Giga Bell, you can turn into Giga Cat Mario and have this crazy Dynamax-like battle with Fury Bowser. Your goal is ultimately to defeat him. So aside from that admittedly pretty crazy stuff at the end there, what's so significant about this, huh? Seems like a standard 3D Mario adventure to me. Your goal is the same, to slay the King of the Koopas, except we need to focus on the core of this again. Here, you're teaming with an ally, going around a sandbox-styled world where there's smaller platforming challenges inside of it, and you also have these collectibles scattered about everywhere. Yeah, it's Super Mario Odyssey. The similarities between Bowser's Fury and Odyssey have been continually tallied up by the fanbase. First of all, this animation when you collect the cat shine is identical to Odyssey's moon collecting animation, absolutely identical. There are also these smaller cat shine things, which one would assume to be the moon shard equivalent of this game. And let's touch back on the name of the world as well, being Lake Lapcat. Not only does it have a similar name to Odyssey's Lake Kingdom, but it also has a very similar color palette. A theory that some fans have been sharing is that maybe assets are being reused from Mario Odyssey, such as assets from the Lake Kingdom for a world like this, or maybe Nintendo is just implementing some of the ideas that were scrapped from Odyssey's Lake Kingdom into Bowser's Fury. There are even more similarities to Odyssey as well though. A snapshot mode is being brought into 3D World, very similar to Odyssey's, but it's to make use of the collected stamps because, well, Miiverse isn't a thing anymore, and you can now include the stamps in your pictures. In the Bowser's Fury mode, again, the camera is completely controllable in a similar way to Odyssey. Mario also has full 360-degree movement in this mode, as opposed to just 8 directions as he has in the standard 3D World mode. Oh, and I said I'd touch on Bowser Jr. again, and yeah, you'll notice some similarities to another ally that Mario has had in a recent game here. Cappy being Mario's ally and effectively a second player in Mario Odyssey has seemingly influenced Bowser Jr. a lot. They don't do very similar things to one another, no, not at all. Bowser Jr. uses his same magic paintbrush from Super Mario Sunshine in 3D World as an attack, or to paint on walls with question marks to reveal items here. You won't see Bowser Jr. capturing any enemies. Bowser Jr. being in 3D World now is also pretty interesting because he was one of the objects actually excluded from the 3D World theme in Mario Maker 2. Along with the clown car that he rides in. So him being the ally choice was pretty unexpected. But the simple fact that there is an ally here at all really showcases the influence that Mario Odyssey has had, along with all of the other points that I was just mentioning here. So yes, there's a lot of similarities, I bet we could agree on that. But what's so significant about this? Why is new content being added into the game in Odyssey style in the first place? This is Super Mario 3D World of all games, the 6th 3D Mario game, and many would say the 2nd or 3rd consecutive at the time of its release in the linear level style. Many were opposed to this at the time, as the more traditional sandbox style of Mario games had essentially faded away. Super Mario 64, Sunshine, and many would say the original Mario Galaxy, the 3 games that were combined together in Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which is only available until March 31st, just to remind you of that amazing fact. These games were more in the sandbox style as we've established. And what I mean by the sandbox style is you're dropped into a larger level with many smaller missions to do in, as opposed to the style that seemed to have followed up these games. Nintendo generally seems to consider Galaxy 2 in the vein of the subsequent releases of 3D Land and 3D World, more of a linear level style. After all, in Galaxy 2, they did change the hub world from Galaxy into a straight up level select screen where you go from planet to planet, and there's not as much depth on each one as there was in the original. In these 3 games, mainly with 3D Land and 3D World though, there's a primary objective that you're setting out to achieve and some smaller secrets that you can collect along the way, such as the green stars in 3D World. This contrast of styles and the fact that the original style of 3D Mario was pretty much abandoned got a lot of people on the 3D World hate train, not necessarily because of the quality of the game itself, but because the game was something that they didn't want it to be. I've got to admit, I was kind of one of those people that was bummed that 3D World was still in that style. Now 3D World as a game on its own, in a vacuum, it was lots of fun. It's a great multiplayer 3D Mario experience, but I had missed that core original style of the 3D Mario games, and I had a feeling that it was never coming back. Until Super Mario Odyssey changed my whole perspective. Super Mario Odyssey sort of reintroduced this sandbox style of Mario games back to the series. And now you don't really have as much of a reason to dislike 3D World, 3D Land, or even Galaxy 2 if you want to include it in that bunch, purely because they're different, because they haven't entirely replaced what you originally loved anymore. And it's because Super Mario Odyssey released in this style that I thought Nintendo was going to continue going forward releasing two separate types of 3D Mario games. the ones in the linear level style, and the ones in the more open world level style. I thought this was further reinforced when the Switch port of Super Mario 3D World was announced, and there was going to be some new content included within it, but with this recent trailer of Bowser's Fury, my opinion on that has greatly changed. This is because, as we've discussed, Bowser's Fury is taking a lot of inspiration from Mario Odyssey. The only thing that they don't really have in there is the capture mechanic. It's basically the 3D world gimmicks and power-ups included in an Odyssey-style sandbox world with these shine collectibles just like Power Moons. And the reason why we've gone over all of this, and I believe my opinion has greatly changed on the subject, is because I don't think there's going to be this contrast anymore. At least not traditionally. Now this is very counterintuitive to the thought process that I was having around 2 years ago. This was the time of release of Super Mario Maker 2. But at that time, I thought 3D World would get ported to the Switch because obviously the level style of 3D World was included in this game. Nintendo was showcasing it. By the way, I just want to remind you guys that that extra level styles section is still there, and there's only one level style in it, and there's still this space for something else that hasn't been used yet, and probably will never ever get used, and we're gonna have to continue speculating and wondering as to why that is. But back to the main subject at hand, because of this prominent showcase of 3D World, I thought it was going to get ported. I thought there were going to be more games in the 3D World style in the future. Now I don't think so. Because think about it, if Bowser's Fury was going to be some extra content added into 3D World, don't you think they'd want to make it in the 3D World style? Because think about it, they ported over 3D World, they have the assets, they have the engine from the original game that they could use to build, let's say, 1 or 2 more worlds to add into this extra content and call that Bowser's Fury. They're clearly using the Odyssey engine here instead. This makes me feel, because they're not either developing a new engine to make this 3D World level style, or they're not using the current one, that they have no plans in the immediate future to make new games and general levels in the style of Super Mario 3D World and 3D Land. Except for one larger scale idea that I'm going to be talking about later on in the video. But with that being said, what does this mean for the next 3D Mario game? The first real new one ever since Super Mario Odyssey. This isn't going to come as much of a shocker, but the next idea I think is very likely is a Super Mario Odyssey 2. See, in previous videos that I made on the channel, I've talked about, oh, what's the next 3D Mario game going to be? I've stated several ideas, such as a sequel to Mario Sunshine, a Galaxy 3, something of that nature, but Odyssey 2 always really seemed to be the favorite. Odyssey is top 5 in Switch game sales. Top 5, that's really good, especially when you consider the games that it's up against. There's a lot of heavy hitters on the Switch, and yeah, I get it's Mario, but still, top 5 is nothing to scoff at. And with 3D All-Stars coming out, and the fact that Galaxy 2 wasn't included in there, I really don't think a Galaxy 3 makes as much sense anymore, and with Super Mario Odyssey already selling so much, maybe they think the Odyssey branding will just work better for the current environment. Combine that with the fact that they haven't shown much, if any, desire to rebuild a new game engine for 3D Mario games in the past 3 years, I don't think they'd want to have to develop one for the Super Mario Galaxy style. This all puts Odyssey 2 in a very heavy favorite for the next 3D Mario game. I don't think that's very shocking to anybody, I just think the opinion is reinforced right now. But if you're still on the fence about that and you think a 3D World sequel is a lot more likely, I think we have to start looking at the sales numbers a little bit more in depth. How well will Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury sell? Well, to estimate this, we could look at some other figures. 3D World was the second highest selling game on the Wii U with 5.86 million units sold, just above New Super Mario Bros. U and quite a bit below Mario Kart 8 by Wii U standards. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is currently the best selling game on the Switch, although it's going to lose that title to Animal Crossing soon enough if it hasn't already. But the reality is, we still know that it did amazing, even if Animal Crossing is passing it. But a fact that not as many people are talking about is that New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe performed better on Switch than it did on Wii U as well. It sold over 8 million units this time around, nowhere near the same spike as Mario Kart 8, but still better than the original. So the general safe estimate for Super Mario 3D World is between these figures, but I'd bet on 3D World doing a lot better than New Super Mario Bros. U. Some of these reasons are related to 3D World itself, and some are related to the circumstances surrounding New Super Mario Bros. U. Let's start with the latter. New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe released at the start of 2019, a time not particularly best suited for video game sales numbers. Granted, 3D World is releasing earlier on in the year as well, but it's not January, at least it's February. It's a little bit better. Why is early on in the year so bad? Well, the bulk of people's transactions are made in December, and January is a much softer month spending-wise as people start to save more, recovering after the Christmas and holiday time period. The release time was a factor, but the release of Mario Maker 2 in the middle of the year was a bigger factor in my opinion. This was really strange to me. 2 2D Mario games released within a 6-month time span of one another, potentially dividing the public on what game they'd want to buy. Some may only want to buy one over the other, and those who were thinking of buying New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe may have saw Mario Maker on the horizon and waited for that instead. I'm not saying they're the same game or they're interchangeable or anything of that sort. They both have different appeals, obviously, with one being a level builder and one is built from the ground up for you. but they did somewhat conflict, there's no doubt in that. Now 3D World may have some conflict problems as well since it's releasing less than 6 months after 3D All-Stars, but it's been almost 4 years since the last new 3D Mario game as well. Also 3D All-Stars is a limited time release, whereas 3D World is going to be a longer time period release, and that competition won't be on the shelf for very long. There are also many new features being added to 3D World to make it more of a worthwhile purchase for those on the fence. We've already mentioned a lot about the Bowser's Fury content, which we'll discuss even more of in a little bit, but what about the changes to the gameplay of 3D World itself? One of the biggest new features being added into Super Mario 3D World this time around is online multiplayer, which I think is going to be absolutely amazing. You know, if it runs well and not like Smash Ultimate's online. Oh god, I just put the fear in everybody's hearts. But you know, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe isn't bad in that regard, so maybe we can have some hope. Maybe, I don't know. But still, 4-player co-op, and you could have 2 players on the same console as well, not in the Bowser's Fury mode, though that's entirely offline, but this, for the general gameplay of 3D World, is going to spice it up a lot. You're going to be able to play this game with friends from overseas that you've never had a chance to play with in person, obviously because it was only local play prior to this. There's also a new power-up being included. The only one that we know as of this moment in time is the Invincibility Bell. It's in a similar vein to the White Tanuki Mario of the past, which grants you infinite invincibility. This time around, you'll get the cat power-ups as well, though. You get it by scanning in the Cat Mario amiibo. Oh, and speaking of amiibo, there are a few things that these figurines will get you in this game. The Bowser amiibo makes Bowser appear in the Bowser's Fury mode. Bowser Jr.'s amiibo makes a shockwave appear that hits enemies and blocks, and if you couldn't get your hands on either of those ones, I believe Bowser and Bowser Jr. are going to be getting restocked soon as well. All the other Super Mario series amiibo will work in this game as well, and when scanned, they'll give you a star. And even if you don't have any of those, just scanning any amiibo that you own will give you a 1-up, which is pretty cool. Some changes to the physical gameplay in 3D World itself. You can now roll in mid-air, long jumps go further, there's faster movement speed, and you could also climb higher in cat form compared to the original. The Captain Toad mode could be played with 4 players now instead of just 1 from the original game, which is a good addition. There are some new enemies as well in the Bowser's Fury mode, although they don't seem to act too dissimilar from their regular counterparts. It's going to be interesting to see if they have any more new enemy ideas in this mode, or if it's just going to be every enemy with cat ears. It is an interesting aesthetic change, I'll give it that. And about the Bowser's Fury mode again specifically, I don't know how much content there is necessarily going to be in this mode. I don't know if it's just going to be a couple of hours or if it's going to be a few hours. It might just be the equivalent of one kingdom in Super Mario Odyssey, which I think is a decent amount of content to go along with all the other great changes that I was just talking about. So with all those being gone over, would those changes to Super Mario 3D World influence more people to buy the game as opposed to New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe to put it ahead of that game sales-wise? I think it would, especially the online multiplayer factor. Now, will Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury sell better than Super Mario Odyssey? I doubt this. This is because of all those smaller caveats that I was listing. Oh, it's releasing earlier on in the year. 3D All-Stars released less than 6 months ago. While I think that still makes it in a better situation as compared to New Super Mario Bros. U, it's still not in a better position as opposed to Super Mario Odyssey's holiday release, with little to no competition in terms of their demographic. 3D World is also not an entirely new game. There were a lot of people that played it on the Wii U, as we've gone over in the sales numbers. Now, compared to Switch sales numbers, obviously, those don't look nearly as big. But you know, you're talking about almost 6 million people. I don't know how many are going to carry over. I mean, this new content seems really good, so there's definitely going to be some people who want to double dip here, but I'm sure not everybody is willing to just buy the same game twice, even if there is new content and convenience changes being added in. It'll just come down to how many people want to buy this game for the first time on the Switch, and if that number is extraordinary, then we could see this game doing really well. I still don't see it passing Odyssey because that's an original experience being developed from the ground up for the Switch, but if it did pass Odyssey sales-wise, I think we are going to have to see more of this style going forward. But how do I think that would be implemented? Well, my idea right now is 3D Mario Maker. Now, I know this seems kind of crazy. A lot of people think that it wouldn't work. Oh, the levels are going to be too big, the file space and all of that. I just think if you limit the amount of levels that people can post online, the servers are going to be able to handle it. Nintendo, we're paying for your online service. You should be able to provide this to us. Especially with all the rumors of a Switch Pro coming out, the hardware is probably going to be a lot more powerful to withstand this. 3D Mario Maker, I think, is definitely possible. It's just whether or not we get it. Now, why do I think the linear level-based style has to be included in a 3D Mario Maker? Well, levels in the 3D Land and 3D World style would work much better because they'd be simpler to create for players. You have to make sure with a fan base as large as the Mario fan base that ease of accessibility is one of the main factors. You can't have this game be too daunting to get into. And like I was just talking about, sharing the files online, if you have a level in the linear based style, the world's not going to be too big, so it's not going to be too large to share and download for people. Whereas that would be the case if you're developing worlds in the size of Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario Odyssey, for example. Now, we still could potentially have game styles in the vein of 64 and Galaxy with mainly just aesthetic changes, but the levels would likely be in the size of 3D World, and this game format would be used for a level creator going forward. There are a lot of questions as to the future of 2D Mario after Mario Maker. They're really going to have to innovate if a level creator already exists, but if a 3D Mario Maker comes out in this simple level-based style, 3D Mario games in the traditional Odyssey style can still continue because Nintendo is not taking away from the appeal of those new games, as you can't create them yourself. Each are still offering a different experience, and different types of players will prefer one style over another. With the great sales of Super Mario Odyssey and the way the fan base had tended to drift away from the appeal of the 3D Land and 3D World style and requested for the original one to come back, Nintendo has certainly felt that this is where 3D Mario fans really wanted their games to be coming from. Again, not saying there's anything wrong with 3D Land and 3D World, I do enjoy those games, but I bet if you took an entire poll of the 3D Mario fan base and asked them which style do you prefer over another, I bet the vast majority would say the Odyssey sandbox style. But this is a way that Nintendo could potentially continue having both and not conflict with one another. Now, what impact does Bowser's Fury have on the rest of Nintendo's 2021? Well, yes, one of the main points I was saying earlier on in the video is that an Odyssey 2 is much more likely now. I don't believe it's as likely to release this year anymore because Nintendo is already having Odyssey-styled content in a game. Now, again, they could pull a 3D All-Stars and 3D World, the Mario Maker 2, and a new Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe, just have these games release all in the same year and have them potentially conflict. But Nintendo may have realized by this point that it doesn't make as much sense to release all these games in the same genre in the same year in close proximity to one another, especially with it being Zelda's 35th anniversary and Pokemon's 25th anniversary as well. There's going to be major titles for those games releasing this year. There's not going to be as much pressure for a holiday release of Super Mario Odyssey 2, there isn't. Next year, when the Switch Pro is likely out and we're all settling into that and they can improve the graphics for the game as well, I bet Super Mario Odyssey 2 could potentially release at that time. Now, I do have some more theories about the rest of Nintendo's 2021. You can click the link on screen right now. There's a video where I talk all about that subject. Consider subscribing if you're new to the channel and clicking the bell icon so that you do not miss these new videos when they release. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.